There are many theories to explain the great unknown. Some people turn to science, others religion, and of course, there are those that just shove both aside and say that life as we know it just happened, though this theory turns back to science in the end. Many different countries and races have had religion for as long as there has been recorded history, and in the more recent times of intercontinental travel, there have been reports of black holes, places where boats and planes just disappear off the face of the earth, the most famous being the Bermuda Triangle. No one knows why these places exist, or even how they exist, but there is one theory, spoken in little more than whispers due to its controversial subject matter. It is referred to by some as the God theory. It is said that during the reign of King Henry VIII, 3 high-standing bishops, this was before the creation of the Church of England, mind you, were called into a private meeting. No one knows what was said during this meeting, with only the 4 men in the room. However, after the meeting concluded, the bishops were quickly taken aboard a mysterious ship, and they were never seen again. According to one of the bishop's diaries, found in the late 1890s during a restoration of one of Henry's manors, the king had been acting peculiarly in the past months leading up to when they were called into the council of the king. He had been rambling in mass, talking about how God was man-made, and how he would make a far better God than any that the Romans and Hebrews had made. The bishop, who was also practiced in medicine, took it as insanity setting in, and ordered that Henry be bled to allow the demons causing his insanity to escape. After bleeding the king several times in the month, the king's ramblings stopped, and the bishop declared Henry sane. It was only a month later that the 3 bishops disappeared. There are many differing theories as to what happened to these bishops. One was that Henry sent them to a harsh and savage land as a form of exile from the British Isles, and as punishment for speaking out against the head of state. Another is that the bishops were simply going back to Rome to assure similar roles in the Vatican. Then, of course, there is the God theory. The God theory states that the ship the bishops boarded was a prisoner ship, a floating prison where convicts were forced to languish on the open sea as punishment for whatever crimes, imagined or real, the passengers may or may have not committed. On this ship, there were 6 convicts, 3 men and 3 women. Among the crew itself, there were a handful of sailors, 2 guards, the captain, and the bishops. The first stop was, in fact, Rome. While the ship waited in dock, 3 bishops were taken to the Vatican City, where they were ushered into a meeting with Pope Leo X. This meeting was documented, although the scroll that it was documented on is close to destroyed. What can be read from the scroll, however, could change the way people look at religion forever. What remains of the scroll says, Sit autem 3 viri isti in desolationem eo quod tribus insulius et refutare dominium Deum nostrum, enien sit amet est et salvandi omnes evidentiam posteris et sciante nos minus virtut omnipotentis. This translates roughly to, let these 3 men travel to 3 desolate islands and attempt to disprove our Lord God. All evidence of this test is to be documented and saved so that future generations will not fail to know the power of the Almighty. This is where the 3 bishops go back to the ship and are never seen again. Everything from here is based purely on speculation, although with such conditions, it would not surprise me if there are any in fact true. It is believed that the bishops were dropped off to 3 differing islands, each one with 1 male and 1 female prisoner. These islands were tropical in atmosphere and devoid of human life. It is hypothesized that each bishop on his own island then hypnotized their prisoners, effectively erasing their memories of any previous life. The bishops would then name the male Adam and the female Eve. The rest, as they say, is history. Some hypothesize that when Adam and Eve were hypnotized, that the hypnosis caused them to only be able to hear the bishop. Time would go on as usual, and left with no means to leave the island, a civilization was born. Now, due to the hypnosis, it is theorized that with each pair of Adam and Eve's had their children, the children could, at first, see the bishop as well as hear him. But after constant insistence by their parents and constant ignorance from the bishops, many children born would no longer see him, and just hear him if he chose to speak as God. Time passed, and obviously the bishops would die. They, of course, were only human. Whether the new race of humans were able to see his body when he died, no one knows. But it is theorized that as time went by, that the prisoners, or Adam and Eves, became things of myth, or even worshipped as the forebears of the human race. It is said stories were written and songs were made. Some would also have supposedly conversed with their god, and thus a religion was born. Of course, no one has heard from these people, and if they have met them, they have not returned from their encounters. And this is where the theory of the triangles comes from. Think of the stories you hear of alien encounters. They tend to fly strange airships, or, in some instances, come from the water itself, correct? What if, for example, when these people were left to fend for themselves on these islands, they didn't, for example, evolve? In some way, they were still human, but had certain characteristics changing in them, which would transform them into a new form of the human race. And if they were to see a civilized human, imagine what they would think. Time traveler? Perhaps. Alien or demonic being? Most likely. Now, maybe when these people saw the race set up by Henry VIII, they chose to join them. And why not? They were most likely a peaceful, relaxed race. Or maybe when the natives saw the civilized people and equipment, they attacked, seeing this civilized race as a threat. Some people can travel through these triangles unharmed, coming clean through them. Others disappear forever. And, of course, there are the reports of islands being seen in the distance, usually uncharted, yet they never do get chartered. Keeping this in mind, including the brief mention of alien encounters, is it possible that the world's religions were created by a superior alien race? Keep in mind, in the Bible it is said God made us in his image. Well, why not? Don't give it too much thought on my account, though. After all, it's only a theory. This creepypasta really just, I don't know, it intrigues me. Let me just put it this way. This creepypasta is unique, mainly in the fact that it takes more or less a philosophical and psychological turn to it, rather than the straight up, oh, there was blood and gore everywhere, blah blah blah, bunny man, dudes with axes killing people, blah blah blah, ghosts, boo. No, this takes something that really plays deep into the minds of people, like how we perceive a religion and how we perceive our daily life. And really, I find this as quite an interesting theory, even if the aliens does make it a bit far-fetched at one point. But I will say that, to me, it sounds like a very decent theory in question, especially the fact that, technically, if you were to take a bunch of people, like, hell, you could do this by taking, like, a bunch of children, actually. Like, take a bunch of orphaned babies with you to, like, a secluded area, and basically, if you were to, like, raise them from childbirth, and, they weren't really, like, well, I guess more or less the fact is that if you were able to take young children that don't know who you are, and, like, you basically raised them with them having this omnipotent feeling that you are always there, but they don't know who you are, then there would be that feeling that they are listening directly to a god. They are listening to some deity. And frankly, this intrigues me. It makes me think a little bit, because to some people, God is actually a man-made aspect. And honestly, whether he is or not, I know I'm probably not in the right place to debate it, but whether he is or not, that really plays against your psyche, especially when the fact that you have been religious for most of your life. Like, when you go to church a lot and you are an active member in your church and you follow a certain religion, it really plays against your psyche, and it confuses you at first, and then it really starts to make you wonder after a while. So, all in all, this was actually a very genuine creepypasta, if you ask me. I actually enjoyed this, minus the aliens. I'm not going to mention the aliens part, because to me that sounds a little far-fetched, adding the whole fact of maybe the aliens were the ones who we call God, but I don't call that likely. But still, this theory raises such a very impressive thought. Like, it's a cool train of thought, really, to think about and to ponder, really. Because, again, more than likely, it could have happened. Honestly, I'm not one to say whether it can or won't, or it did happen, but because I'm not exactly the type of person to be speaking on this, but it leaves you open to thought. I'll just say that much. And whether we are just the products of a bunch of alien beings who came by to just pop us on a random planet they found, or we are simply living a weird life of the Matrix, whatever this is, it's just something to think about, So, yeah, that's going to do it for today. Nice short creepypasta for you guys. I figured you guys might enjoy this, and sorry about my rambling and my god-awful Latin. I don't speak Latin, if that's quite obvious. I probably butchered that. Some Latin scholar in the comments he might show up. I'm not sure. But anyways, yeah, that was the God theory. I hope you guys really did enjoy this one, because the God theory, to me, this is a cool creepypasta. I really enjoyed this. It's actually probably one of the better ones I've read so far on the channel. So, with that said, I've rambled on for long enough. If you guys did enjoy, please do consider leaving a like, do subscribe, just do whatever you really think you have to. I'm the Militant Horse. I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Standing on my doorstep, waiting for a package, hoping for that blissful moment when